What happens when a stranger's child becomes worth more than the life you've spent years protecting? For Rosa T. Scott, the answer was written in blood on a marble floor. The Cheongdam Gala hummed with wealth she'd never touch. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors. Champagne flutes clinked in manicured hands. Laughter that didn't reach the servers weaving between tables. Rosa was a ghost. A black waitress in the heart of Seoul's elite Cheongdam district. Her rules were simple: eyes down, steps silent, collect the pay, and stay invisible. She was running from a life that didn't allow for mistakes. Then the mahogany doors exploded. Gunfire turned the crystal chandeliers into raining shards of ice. The crowd became a stampede of screaming shadows, designer heels abandoned on blood-slicked marble. In the chaos, Rosa saw her. A 6-year-old girl in white silk, paralyzed. The gunman leveled his rifle. A man in black cutting through the fleeing masses, his face carved from fury and desperation, racing toward the child but fighting against the human tide. Too slow. The gunman's rifle swung. Found its small, trembling target. Rosa T. Scott didn't have time to calculate the answer to her own question. When the barrel leveled toward the girl in white silk, Rosa's world narrowed to a single point. She didn't remember her rule to stay invisible. She didn't remember the past she was running from. She simply dove. The bullet tore through her shoulder like a brand of white-hot iron, grounding her to the cold marble floor as she pulled the child into the hollow of her own body. His shadow consumed them, towering, absolute, suffocating. His voice cut through the screaming, low and controlled, laced with an accent she couldn't place. "Who are you?" She wanted to answer, to say nobody, but her lungs were drowning, her vision collapsing inward, the world bleeding white at the edges. The last thing she felt was his hand, ringed, scarred, impossibly steady, pressed against her wound. The last thing she heard was his command, sharp as a blade. Save her, whatever it costs. She thought it was gratitude. It wasn't. It was the beginning of her captivity. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're ready for another captivating story, go ahead and click subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I love knowing how far our stories travel and how many hearts they reach. Your support helps us bring even more thrilling tales your way. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Now, settle in.
Let's begin the story. Rosa woke to the smell of antiseptic and something darker.
Copper. Blood.
Her shoulder screamed before her eyes opened. She gasped, fingers clutching at starch sheets that cost more than her monthly rent. The ceiling above her was white, clinical, dotted with recessed lights that hummed with a sterile precision. Not a hospital. Something else. She tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her like lightning splitting a tree. I wouldn't do that. The voice came from the shadows near the door. Low, measured, carrying an accent that wrapped around English like silk over steel. Korean but polished smooth by years abroad. Rosa's head turned slowly. Her vision swam, then focused. He stood against the wall like a sculpture carved from ice and violence. Tall, impossibly still, wearing a charcoal suit that fit him the way armor fit a knight. His face was all sharp angles and controlled fury, eyes dark as winter nights watching her with an intensity that made her want to shrink into the mattress. Kwon Dae-chul, the heir to an empire built on violence. She didn't know his name yet, but she knew what he was. The kind of man who didn't ask questions. The kind who already had answers. Where am I? Her voice came out scraped raw. Safe. He didn't move.
Didn't blink.
For now. The words landed like stones in still water. Rosa's pulse quickened. She'd spent 3 years learning to read threats in the pauses between words, and this man was made entirely of pauses. The girl, she managed. Is she
alive?
Because of you. He stepped forward into the light, and Rosa saw it then. The exhaustion beneath the control. The way his jaw tightened just slightly, like a man holding back an earthquake with his bare hands. My daughter owes you her life.
Daughter.
The word reframed everything. The desperate sprint through the crowd. the command that had followed her into darkness. I didn't know, Rosa said quietly.
I'm aware.
His eyes narrowed, which raises questions. He moved closer, each step deliberate, until he stood at the foot of her bed. This close she could see the details. The platinum watch, the ring on his right hand, thick and engraved with characters she couldn't read. The faint scar along his jawline that spoke of violence survived. Who are you, Rosa T. Scott? Her breath caught. He knew her name. Real or false, it didn't matter. He'd already looked. A waitress. It wasn't entirely a lie. Waitresses don't move like you moved. His voice dropped lower, colder. Waitresses don't calculate trajectories and shield children with the instinct of someone trained. Rosa's fingers tightened on the sheets.
Run.
Every nerve in her body screamed it. But there was nowhere to go. No door that wasn't guarded. No window that wasn't watched. She was in a glass fortress. Beautiful, pristine, and utterly inescapable. I need to know, Dae-chul continued, leaning forward just enough that she felt the weight of his presence like gravity itself, whether I owe you gratitude or whether I've brought an enemy into my home. His hand rested on the bed frame.
Steady.
Patient. Waiting for her to choose which truth would kill her. The door opened before Rosa could answer, and the entire room shifted. A small figure appeared in the doorway. The girl from the gala. White bandage on her temple, dark hair falling loose around narrow shoulders, eyes wide and red-rimmed from crying. She wore pale blue pajamas that swallowed her small frame, bare feet hesitant on the polished floor.
Un seul.
Dae-chul's voice changed completely. The ice melted into something Rosa hadn't expected. Gentleness. You should be resting. The girl ignored him. Her gaze locked onto Rosa with an intensity that made the woman's chest tighten. Those eyes had seen too much. Knew too much. The kind of knowing that aged children faster than years ever could. Un's soul crossed the room in a rush of small footsteps and stopped at Rosa's bedside. She stared. Just stared. Her bottom lip trembled. Rosa didn't think. She shifted despite the screaming pain in her shoulder and extended her good hand. The girl took it. Her fingers were small, cold, shaking. She whispered something in Korean, voice breaking halfway through. She says thank you. Dae-chul translated quietly. She says you're brave. Rosa's throat closed. Tell her I'm not. But Un's soul was already climbing carefully onto the edge of the bed, mindful of Rosa's injuries. She curled against Rosa's side like she'd done it 1,000 times, like Rosa was something familiar in a world that had just tried to kill her. Un's soul. Dae-chul started moving forward. Rosa met his eyes over the child's head and shook her own once. Stop. He froze. For a moment something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. The understanding that his daughter had chosen, and in this moment, he wasn't what she needed. Un's soul's small hand found Rosa's again. She squeezed once, twice, 3 times. A rhythm. A question without words. Rosa squeezed back. 3 times. An answer. The girl's breathing slowed. Her body relaxed incrementally, tension bleeding out in waves. She turned her face into Rosa's shoulder and said something else.
Soft.
Barely audible. She says the bad man wanted to hurt her. Dae-chul translated. His voice had gone rough. She says you stopped him. Rosa stroked the girl's hair with her good hand. The motion was instinctive, muscle memory from another life she'd buried. I'd do it again. Un's soul tilted her head up. She didn't need the translation. Understanding passed between them in the space where language failed. A silent contract written in shared trauma and mutual protection. The girl reached up and touched Rosa's cheek. Gentle. Exploring. Then she signed something with her small hands. Dae-chul inhaled sharply. What did she say? Rosa asked. He was quiet for a long moment, watching his daughter curl back against the stranger who'd taken a bullet for her. When he finally spoke, his voice carried something Rosa couldn't name. Grief, maybe. Or fear. She asked if you're her guardian angel. Rosa looked down at the child already half asleep against her, trusting with the absolute faith only children possessed. The kind of trust Rosa had learned to fear because it always got broken.
No, Rosa whispered.
I'm not. But Soul's hand tightened around hers. And Rosa didn't let go. 3 days passed in the glass fortress. 3 days of Soul appearing at Rosa's door each morning with quiet determination, crawling into bed beside her, teaching her Korean words with patient repetition. 3 days of Rosa healing under the watchful eyes of doctors who never asked questions and guards who never looked away. 3 days before Dae-chul returned with a manila folder that landed on her bedside table like a death sentence. We need to talk. He stood at the foot of her bed again, but this time there was no uncertainty in his posture. Only cold, calculated certainty. About who you really are. Rosa's pulse quickened. She'd known this was coming. Had felt it building like pressure before a storm. I told you. I'm a waitress. You were a waitress. He opened the folder, pulled out a photograph, slid it across the white sheets. Before that, you were something else entirely. Rosa didn't need to look. She knew what it showed. A younger version of herself, hair different, name different, standing beside people she'd spent 3 years trying to forget. Park Min-jae's organization. Dae-chul's voice was surgical in its precision. You worked for them. Logistics, if my sources are correct. Moving product. Cleaning money. You were deep inside their operation for 2 years before you vanished. I left that life, Rosa said quietly. People don't leave that life. They run from it. He pulled out another photograph. This one showed the gala. The moment before the shooting. A figure in the background, watching. Waiting. Park Syndicate has been trying to eliminate my family for 5 years. 2 months ago, they nearly succeeded. My wife didn't survive. The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun barrel. Rosa's throat tightened. I didn't know. Convenient. He leaned forward, hands braced on the bed frame. A woman with Park's training appears at my daughter's side exactly when assassins strike. Throws herself in front of a bullet just believably enough to earn my trust. Gets brought into my home, my inner sanctum, close to the one thing I cannot afford to lose. Kwon thinks Rosa is a spy. Do you think he's right to be paranoid? Comment Team Rosa or Team Kwon below. Let's continue. That's not what happened. Then tell me what did. His voice dropped to something dangerous. Because from where I'm standing, you're either the most selfless stranger I've ever met, or you're a Trojan horse. And I've learned the hard way that selfless strangers don't exist in my world. Rosa met his eyes. She saw it there, beneath the ice. The same thing she'd seen in the mirror every morning for 3 years.
Fear.
The bone-deep terror of a parent who'd already lost too much and couldn't survive losing more. I ran from Park because he killed innocent people, she said. Because I woke up one day and realized the blood on my hands wouldn't wash off. I've been running ever since. Running. Or hiding. He straightened, waiting for the right moment. If I wanted to hurt your daughter, I had a bulletproof opportunity 3 days ago.
Il chose differently.
Maybe you're playing a longer game. Or maybe, Rosa's voice hardened, I'm just trying to be someone different than who I was. Dae-chul studied her.
Silent. Calculating.
Behind him, through the window, Seoul sprawled in neon and shadow. Finally, he collected the photographs. Slid them back into the folder. You'll stay in this wing. Under guard. Until I decide whether you're redemption or revenge. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. For Soul's sake, he said without turning, I hope you're telling the truth.
The door closed.
And Rosa was alone with her ghosts again. The tea arrived on a silver tray at precisely 3 in the afternoon, carried by a servant Rosa had seen a dozen times before. Middle-aged woman, kind eyes, always bowing slightly when she entered the room where Soul practiced her English with Rosa. Nothing about her seemed wrong. Everything about her seemed wrong. Rosa couldn't explain it. Just an instinct honed in Park's organization, where survival meant reading the spaces between heartbeats. The woman's hands were too steady. Her smile too practiced. The way she set the tray down, angling it just so toward Soul's favorite chair. Wait. Rosa's voice cut across the room. The servant froze. Un's soul looked up from her coloring book, curious. Rosa pushed herself up from the bed, shoulders still protesting but healing. She crossed to the tray, studying the delicate porcelain cups, the steaming pot painted with cherry blossoms. 2 cups. One for Un's soul, one for Rosa. Leave it, Rosa said quietly in broken Korean she'd been learning. Go. The woman's kind eyes flickered. Just for a second. Something cold passed behind them like a shadow behind glass. She bowed and left without argument. Rosa stared at the tea. Un's soul came to stand beside her, small hand slipping into Rosa's. The girl said something questioning, pointing at the cups. Don't drink it, Rosa said. She picked up Un's soul's cup, the one positioned closest to the child's chair, and carried it to the window. A small potted orchid sat on the sill, white petals pristine in the afternoon light. Rosa poured half the tea into the soil. They waited. 60 seconds later, the orchid's petals began to brown, curling inward like paper touched by flame. The leaves yellowed, then blackened. The entire plant collapsed into itself within 3 minutes. Un's soul's grip on Rosa's hand tightened to the point of pain. Rosa pulled the emergency call button. Alarms shrieked through the estate. Guards flooded the room within seconds, guns drawn, surrounding them both. Dae-chul arrived last, face carved from thunder, eyes scanning the room for threats. The tea, Rosa said simply, pointing to the dying orchid. He looked. Understood. His jaw clenched so hard Rosa heard bone grind against bone. Where's the servant? His voice could have cut diamonds.
Gone.
30 seconds after I stopped Un's soul from drinking. Dae-chul crossed to the orchid, touched one blackened petal. It disintegrated under his finger. He turned to his head of security, spoke rapid Korean that Rosa only half understood. Words like poison, betrayal, sweep the compound. The man disappeared with half the guards. The rest formed a protective circle around Un's soul.
Dae-chul approached Rosa slowly.
His eyes searched her face with an intensity that felt like being dissected. How did you know? I've seen this play before. Different stage, same script. Rosa met his gaze. In Park's organization, we use servants. People no one questions. People who become invisible. You could have drunk it yourself. Played the long game. Earned more trust. I could have. Rosa glanced at Un's soul, who was being checked over by the estate doctor. But she matters more than your trust. Something shifted in Dae-chul's expression. The ice didn't melt, but it cracked. Just slightly. Enough to let light through. The servant worked here for 3 years, he said quietly. Background checked. Vetted. Loyal. Everyone's loyal until they're bought. And you? He stepped closer. What would it take to buy you? Rosa looked at him. Really looked. Saw the exhaustion beneath the armor. The fear he'd almost lost his daughter twice in 1 week. Nothing you have, she said. Because I already lost everything that mattered. This. She gestured at Un's soul. This is just me trying not to lose anything else. He held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded once. Double her security, he told the remaining guard. And remove Rosa's restrictions. She stays with my daughter. Always. It wasn't trust. But it was a start. The rain came on the 7th night, turning Soul's neon into watercolor bleeding down glass. Rosa found Dae-chul in his study, alone, staring at a photograph in a silver frame. The woman in it was beautiful. Delicate features, kind eyes, holding a much younger Un's soul. Her name was Ji-hai. His voice came soft, unexpected. He didn't turn from the window. She hated this life.
The guards.
The guns. The constant fear. Rosa stood in the doorway, uncertain whether to enter or leave. Un's soul was asleep down the hall, finally peaceful after 3 nights of nightmares. She was a teacher, Dae-chul continued. Elementary school. We met when I was trying to be someone different. Someone clean. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. She thought she could save me from the Kwan name. Thought love was stronger than blood. What happened? Rosa asked quietly. Park happened. He set the frame down with careful precision, as if it might shatter. A car bomb. Meant for me. She was driving Eun-sol to school. Ji-hai pushed our daughter out seconds before the explosion, covered her with her own body. Rosa's chest tightened. She understood now. The desperate sprint at the gala. The way he looked at Eun-sol like she was made of glass and might disappear if he blinked. Eun-sol doesn't speak anymore, Dae-chul said. Not since that day. Doctors say it's trauma. Maybe one day she'll find her voice again. He finally turned, and Rosa saw something she hadn't expected.
Tears.
Restrained but present. My wife's last gift to me was our daughter's life. And I've spent 18 months trying to figure out how to keep it without becoming the monster everyone thinks I am. You're not a monster, Rosa said.
No.
He moved to the desk, poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter, offered one to Rosa. I run an empire built on violence. I've killed men, ordered deaths, destroyed families to protect my own. What does that make me? Rosa took the glass. Human. He studied her over the rim of his drink. You understand it. The weight. I can see it in how you move, like you're carrying bodies on your shoulders. I am. Rosa sipped the whiskey. It burned clean and was expensive. Every person I helped Park hurt. Every shipment I processed ended up destroying lives. I carry all of them. Then why save Eun-sol? Why risk adding another body if you fail? Because maybe, Rosa said slowly, one saved life doesn't erase the others. But it's a start. Dae-chul was quiet for a long moment. Rain hammered against the windows. Thunder rolled distant over the city. I investigated you, because I had to, he said finally. Because trusting the wrong person cost me Ji-hai. Cost Eun-sol her voice. Cost me the chance to be anything other than what I am. And now. He set down his glass. Looked at her directly. Now I think you're the first person in 3 years who understands what it means to live in a glass fortress. Beautiful on the outside. Prison on the inside. Is that what this is? Rosa asked. A prison.
For Eun-sol, yes.
For me, penance. He crossed to the window again, hands behind his back. My father built this empire. My grandfather before him. The Kwon name is written in blood going back generations. Ji-hai wanted me to break the cycle. To give Eun-sol a different life. Can you? I don't know. His reflection in the rain-streaked glass looked older than the man behind it. But I'm starting to think I can't do it alone. He turned back to her. I need to know I can trust you, Rosa. Not because you took a bullet. Not because you saved her from poison. But because you understand what's at stake. Rosa met his eyes. You can. Then help me. The words came raw, stripped of armor. Help me keep my daughter alive long enough to get out of this life. Help me be worthy of Ji-hai's sacrifice. Rosa thought about running. About all the times she'd chosen safety over connection. About the girl sleeping down the hall who'd made her feel something other than fear for the first time in years. Okay, she said.
And meant it.
The alarm screamed at 2 a.m. Rosa was already moving before her eyes fully opened, muscle memory from Park's organization taking over. She grabbed the go bag Dae-chul had insisted she keep by the door and sprinted down the hall to Eun-sol's room. The girl was sitting up in bed, wide-eyed but silent. Always silent. We need to go. Rosa scooped her up, feeling the child's arms wrap tight around her neck.
Now.
Gunfire erupted somewhere below. Close. Too close. The kind of automatic weapons fire that meant this wasn't an outside attack. This was someone who knew the security systems. Someone who'd already bypassed the outer defenses.
Rosa's door burst open.
Dae-chul, gun drawn, face carved from fury and fear. Blood on his white shirt sleeve. Not his own. Lieutenant Choi, he said. He's been with me for 8 years. 8 years. The betrayal in his voice was physical. He's breached the inner sanctum. Has 12 men with him. Maybe more. Park. Rosa asked. Has to be. Choi was always ambitious. Park must have offered him the keys to the kingdom. Dae-chul crossed to them, touched Eun-sol's face with infinite gentleness, then looked at Rosa. There's a service exit through the kitchen. It leads to the underground garage. Take her. Get out of Seoul. There's a safe house in Busan. Code is. I'm not leaving you, Rosa said. You have to. His eyes were desperate. If Choi gets to her, everything Ji-hai died for means nothing. Everything you've done means nothing. More gunfire. Closer. Shouting in Korean. Dae-chul's remaining security trying to hold a line that was already broken. Please. The word broke something in him to say. Save my daughter. Rosa looked at Eun-sol, saw the girl staring at her father with those two old eyes. Saw her small hand reach out toward him. Dae-chul took it. Squeezed 3 times. Eun-sol squeezed back. 3 times. Their language of love in a world of violence. Then Rosa was running. Down the servants' stairs, through the kitchen still warm from dinner service hours ago, Eun-sol a slight weight against her healing shoulder. Behind them, the gunfire intensified. A explosion shook the walls. Someone screaming orders. The garage was chaos. Dead guards. Bullet holes in luxury cars worth more than Rosa had made in her entire life. She found a black sedan with keys still in the ignition, threw Eun-sol into the back seat. Stay down, she said. Don't move. Don't look. She gunned the engine. The garage door was already open, security protocols completely compromised. Rosa floored it, tires screaming on wet pavement as they burst out into Seoul's rain-soaked streets. In the rear-view mirror, the Kwon estate burned. Flames licking at the glass fortress, turning it from palace to prison to pyre. Eun-sol's small hand found Rosa's shoulder. Gripped tight. Rosa drove faster, merging into the sparse early morning traffic. Every car, a potential threat. Every shadow, a possible tale. She'd learned to run in Park's organization. Had perfected the art of disappearing. But she'd never run with something worth protecting before. Never had someone depending on her to be more than the ghost she'd become. The rain hammered down. Seoul's neon bled across the windshield. Behind them, sirens wailed toward the estate. And somewhere in that burning fortress, Dae-chul fought alone against the lieutenant he'd trusted for 8 years. Rosa's phone buzzed. A single text. Keep her safe. Whatever it costs. Then nothing. Just rain and road, and the small girl in the back seat who'd already lost too much. Rosa drove into the dark. And didn't look back. Rosa ditched the sedan in Itaewon, in an alley behind a club still pulsing with bass at 3 in the morning. Too distinctive. Too easy to track. She pulled Eun-sol close, wrapped her in an oversized jacket from the go bag, and disappeared into the city she'd learned to navigate in her Park years. The rain was their ally. It kept people inside, heads down, eyes averted. Rosa moved through the streets like smoke, taking routes that didn't exist on maps. Through restaurant kitchens where overworked staff didn't ask questions. Down service corridors in buildings with broken security cameras. Across rooftops where only the desperate or skilled dared to walk. Eun-sol never made a sound. Just held Rosa's hand with fierce trust. They needed shelter. Somewhere off-grid. Somewhere the Kwon organization's enemies wouldn't think to look because it was beneath notice. Rosa found it in Mullidong, in the industrial heart of Seoul where metal shops and art studios collided. A PC bang on the 3rd floor of a building that smelled like welding smoke and instant ramen. The kind of place where people came to disappear into screens for days at a time. The owner was old, half-blind, and supremely indifferent to his customers as long as they paid cash. Rosa rented a private room. Locked the door. Checked every corner, every vent, every possible entry point with the systematic precision of someone who'd survived by being paranoid. Only then did she let herself breathe. Eun-sol stood in the center of the tiny room, still wrapped in the jacket, looking smaller than ever.
Lost.
Her eyes found Rosa's.
Questioning.
Afraid. We're safe, Rosa said. Then corrected herself. We're safer. For now. She pulled out the laptop from the go bag, logged into an encrypted network using credentials from her Park days that should have been dead, but apparently weren't. Old habits. Old doors that never quite closed. The news was already breaking. Fire at the Kwon estate. Multiple casualties. No mention of Dae-chul's status. No confirmation he was alive or dead. Rosa's hands shook on the keyboard. Eun's soul climbed into her lap. Small, warm, real. The girl's fingers traced patterns on Rosa's arm. Numbers Rosa realized.
Counting.
1 through 10, over and over. A self-soothing ritual. I know, Rosa whispered. I'm scared too. She pulled up old contacts. People from her park days who'd also gotten out, who'd also tried to build something different from the ashes of their former lives. A forger in Busan. A hacker in Daegu. A woman who ran a safe house network for people escaping dangerous situations. One by one, she sent coded messages. Nothing traceable. Nothing that would lead back to this moment, this room, this girl. Then she opened a food delivery app, ordered jjajangmyeon and tangsiyuk using a burner account, paid in cryptocurrency. Basic survival. Feed the body. Rest the mind. Plan the next move.
In Seoul's Gunting Shluba.
Her breathing evened. She was falling asleep against Rosa's chest, finally surrendering to exhaustion. Rosa held her. This small person who'd become her entire world in the span of 2 weeks. This child who'd lost her mother, might have lost her father, and somehow still trusted Rosa to keep her safe. Outside, Seoul hummed. Neon and steel, rain and darkness. Somewhere in that sprawl, Lieutenant Choi was hunting them. Park's organization was moving pieces on a board Rosa couldn't see. And Dae-chul was either alive and fighting or already gone. Rosa's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then did. A voice. Rough, pained, but alive.
Rosa.
Dae-chul. We're safe, she said immediately. Eun's soul is safe. Good. He coughed. The sound was wet. Damaged. Choi escaped. He knows I sent you out. He'll come for her. Let him try. A pause. Then, softer. Thank you. Stay alive, Rosa said. She needs her father. Then help me finish this. The line went dead. Rosa looked at the girl sleeping in her arms. And started planning. They found the PC bang on the 3rd day. Rosa knew before she saw them. An instinct honed sharp in Park's world, where survival meant feeling danger before it arrived. The sudden quiet in the hallway. The way the owner's voice went tight when someone asked questions. She had seconds.
Eun-sol.
Rosa grabbed the girl. Moved to the window. 3 stories up. Fire escape rusted, but functional. We're leaving.
Now.
But the door burst open before they could move. Lieutenant Choi. 6 armed men behind him. Guns drawn. Eyes cold with the certainty of victory. Rosa pushed Eun's soul behind her, positioned herself between the child and the weapons. Her hand found the knife in her pocket. Useless against bullets, but it was something. A last stand. A final defiance. Give me the girl, Choi said in English. Accommodating. And I'll let you walk away. You're not my target.
No.
He smiled. The kind of smile that preceded violence. Then you die with her. Park will pay either way. Rosa's grip tightened on the knife. Then another voice cut through the room. Cold. Absolute. Carrying the weight of generations. Or you all die here. Dae-chul stepped through the door behind Choi's men. He looked like death walking. Suit torn. Blood dried on his face. Bandage visible under his shirt. But his gun was steady. His aim perfect. The room became a standoff. Choi's men turned. Weapons now split between Rosa and their former boss, Dae-chul. Choi's voice carried false warmth. You're alive. How disappointing. Drop your weapons. Dae-chul's gun never wavered. All of you. This ends now. Does it? Choi gestured. His men adjusted their positions. Professional. Practiced. I count 6 guns on my side. 1 on yours. Even you aren't that good. Maybe not. Dae-chul's eyes found Eun's soul over Rosa's shoulder. Something in his expression cracked. But I don't have to be. He lowered his gun. Rosa's heart stopped. What are you doing? She whispered. Making a choice. Dae-chul set the gun on the floor.
Kicked it away.
Raised his hands. Take me instead. Let them go. Choi laughed. You think I want you? Park wants the bloodline erased. The Quan name ended. Your death means nothing if she lives. Then kill me in front of her. Dae-chul's voice went raw, desperate. Let her watch. Let her carry that trauma forever. Break her the way you broke Ji-hai. But let her live to carry it. The room went silent. Eun's soul made a sound. Small. Broken. The first sound Rosa had heard from her in weeks. A wordless cry that held every bit of pain a child's voice could carry. She pushed past Rosa. Ran to her father. No, Rosa started. But Dae-chul caught his daughter. Held her. His face buried in her hair. 3 squeezes of his hand. Their language. Their love. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry I couldn't be what your mother wanted. Couldn't give you the life she dreamed. Choi raised his gun. Aimed at them both. Touching. Really? But Rosa moved. 3 years of running. 3 years of hiding. 3 years of being the ghost who never fought back. All of it ended in the space between heartbeats. She threw the knife. It wasn't meant to kill, just to distract. It buried itself in Choi's shoulder as she launched herself at the nearest gunman. Old training. Park's training. The violence she'd tried to bury roaring back to life. She disarmed him, used his body as a shield, took his gun, fired twice. Center mass. Professional.
Clean.
The room erupted.
Dae-siachuel grabé un sol.
Dove behind the desk as bullets tore through cheap drywall. Rosa moved like water, like smoke, like something more than human, taking down men who'd underestimated the waitress. When the smoke cleared, Rosa stood over Choi, gun to his head, blood on her hands again, the cycle she'd tried to break.
Rosa.
Dae-chul's voice. Gentle. Don't. He'll never stop. I know. Dae-chul stood. Eun's soul clinging to him. But she's watching. And I won't let her see you become what I've been. Rosa's hand shook, then lowered. Call the police, she said. And finally let someone else carry the weight. 6 months later, Rosa stood in the garden of the new Quan home. Not a fortress this time. Just a house. Large, yes. Secure, certainly. But with windows that opened. Doors that welcomed. A garden where a small girl could run without fear of what lurked beyond the walls. Eun's soul was there now, chasing butterflies in the spring sunlight. Still silent, but laughing. The sound came as gestures, as movements, as joy expressed in ways that didn't require words. She's healing. Dae-chul appeared beside Rosa. 2 cups of tea in his hands. He offered one. The therapist says it might take years. Or it might happen tomorrow. Trauma doesn't follow schedules. Rosa accepted the tea. Checked it by habit. Old instincts dying hard. Dae-chul noticed. Smiled slightly. It's just tea. I promise. I know. But she checked anyway. They stood in comfortable silence.
So much had changed.
The betrayal purged. Park's organization dismantled through careful legal maneuvering and strategic cooperation with authorities. Choi and his men facing decades in prison. The Quan syndicate's assets being slowly, methodically legitimized. It turned out Dae-chul was as ruthless in business as he'd been in crime. More so, perhaps, because now he fought with lawyers and accountants instead of guns and fear. I met with the last of the old guard yesterday, he said quietly. Told them the Quan name would no longer be synonymous with violence. That we were done. How they take it? About as well as you'd expect. But they're old. Tired. And without Park pushing, there's no one left to fight.
He sipped his tea.
Ji-hai would have liked this. The garden.
The peace.
Eun's soul playing without guards hovering. She would have, Rosa agreed. I couldn't have done this without you. Dae-chul turned to face her fully. You gave me something I'd lost. Hope that change was possible. That the cycle could break. Rosa felt her throat tighten. I was just trying to keep her safe. You did more than that. You showed me what it meant to sacrifice without expecting payment. To protect without demanding loyalty. He paused. You showed me how to be worthy of Ji-hai's sacrifice. Eun's soul ran up to them, breathless and beaming. She tugged on Rosa's sleeve, then Dae-chul's, pulling them both toward the garden. insistent,
joyful.
they followed, because that's what family did. In the garden, Un's soul had arranged stones in a pattern. 3 large ones, 3 smaller ones around them. She pointed to the large stones, then to each of them in turn. Daechul,
Rosa,
herself. A family, chosen. Forged in violence, but building something different. Is this what you want? Daechul asked Rosa softly. To stay? To be part of this? Rosa looked at him. At Un's soul. At the home they were building from the ashes of everything they'd lost. She'd spent 3 years running. 3 years being invisible. 3 years convinced she didn't deserve peace or connection or love. But maybe redemption wasn't about erasing the past. Maybe it was about choosing differently in the present.
yes, she said.
I want to stay. Un's soul squeezed her hand. 3 times. Rosa squeezed back. 3 times. Their language now. Their promise. That night, as Rosa prepared for bed in the room that had become hers, she found an envelope on her pillow. Inside, legal documents. Adoption papers. Her name listed as Un's soul's legal guardian alongside Daechul. She found him in his study, reading by lamplight. You didn't have to do this, she said. Yes, I did. He looked up.
She chose you, Rosa.
At the gala, in the medical wing, in that PC bang. Every time danger came, she chose you. And you chose her back. That's what family is. Rosa's vision blurred. I don't know how to be a mother. Neither did I know how to be a father worth having. We'll figure it out together.
He stood, crossed to her,
Extended his hand. Thank you for saving my daughter. For saving me. For giving us both a chance at the life I dreamed of. Rosa took his hand and finally stopped running. In the morning, Un's soul crawled into Rosa's bed as the sun rose, curled against her side. Safe.
loved.
Home. And for the first time in 3 years, Rosa T. Scott slept without nightmares. The bullet she'd taken had cost her blood, but it had given her everything. Thank you for watching today. What would you have done if you were her? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one.